Greetings. Welcome to Speak Nerd and Enter.
Welcome to Speak Nerd and Enter, the vidcast for nerds, by nerds, for
I'm not a nerd.
your own good.
For nerds.
For nerds.
For nerds.
And nerds.
All right, cut.
Welcome.
That was good, Rich. Let's just do it good this time.
Okay.
I mean,
We'll
sound
try
a little-
again.
sound a little
Next
excited.
episode. Got a tingle up your leg? Welcome to Speak Nerd and Enter, everyone.
Welcome.
I'm Rich.
Hi,
Say
Hey,
hello,
Rich.
Mark.
I'm Mark.
Say hello, Sean.
No.
No. And say hello, K-Man,
What's up?
the man in the corner.
Last time we talked about Andor at length, and we talked about we were just over the moon really with how it's turned out. Some of us a little later than others, and all, but I think we all ended up in the same place with it. And really, as we look back on it, can enjoy that journey, right? But I want to take time in this one because Rich, you used one of the books, as a matter of fact, as a visual aid there.
Yes.
I want to take time to talk to you guys about what I believe is our favorite sandbox, which is the 40K universe, Warhammer
Yes.
40K. And I know you guys have started. Kelly, you haven't done it yet, but you do have access to the books. And so Kelly, this will be interesting to see as you start to explore this, what you think of it. But Mark, Rich, you have actually read some of the books or started into the books for the Horus Heresy.
Yes, sir.
I have read, I think, if not all of them, almost all of them. I think there's a couple of
It's
the
a lot.
anthology. Yeah, you should see my
It's a
library.
lot, dude.
You should see my library, yes.
It's a lot of
Um,
books.
Well, don't forget, I worked in, Fairfax and Rockville, so I had a lot of time on the road. But I wanted to get you guys' opinion on the series. Now, I remember back when they first came out with novelizations for, Warhammer stuff. And I remember, man, I can't remember how long ago it was. The one that they had about the Inquisitor and the Inquisitor going through the webway and ending up.
I think
at
it was called
Palace.
Inquisitor. I think
I
it's
think it
actually
was.
called Inquisitor. Yeah.
I think it was.
Was
And
it
it
the
was
Eisenhorn
Eisenhorn.
trilogy?
No,
Back in
not
the day?
Eisenhorn. It was even
No, it
before
was just
that.
called
Before
Inquisitor.
that. Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember the dude's name. They even
Yes,
re-released
yeah.
it.
Those weird British sized paperbacks, right? They were
Yes.
a little bit bigger.
A4s.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
A4 size.
Yeah.
And I remember those stories. And while it was an interesting foray, let's say, it was a beginner's effort, if you will, I think,
Mhm.
looking back on it, right? And then you had Drachenfels and, all those that they came out with, which had their own, their own tones and kind of cool.
And then
all that.
Gotrek and Felix. Gotrek and Felix came after.
Yeah.
Yep.
But we were talking, yes, exactly. And remember we were talking about with Star Wars, how it started and then, Andor being a grown-up version of, right? I want to get your opinion on what you think of the series for Horus Heresy. What do yours, Mark, and yours, Rich, on that, and where you think and how you think that plays out?
Mark, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think I'm not sure Kelly's read any of them. I have probably read
Right.
only a few. I think I've read the first
And that's great.
three.
That's why I wanted
Right.
to
So
hear
I'm
it.
coming in as like not having read very many of them. Now I've done several 40K books on audio. And before, I've been an Audible member forever, so I do that. So I've done all like the what is it, Gaunt's Ghost? Like I've done most of that series, and
Yep.
so like I'm, we're not just talking about the Horus Heresy, but I have done like the first 3 Horus Heresies, and then I'm halfway through the first of the Siege of Terra, and so I skipped the 714 books between then. And I will, and again, I read those first 3 a while ago, so I don't remember. I do agree with you that I think the prose has gone up. Sean and I have this kind of running joke where we're always talking about, some Imperial Guard guy getting killed and the ruinous ichor leaking forth from the holes in his body, and it was just
soaking the earth
beneath him, and what we mean by that is it's always this very oh, it's a dark, grim universe and everybody's getting killed, and it's kind of written like an old Sergeant Rock comic with Buddha, 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 and Nazis dying everywhere and things like that, and
Daka Daka.
Daka Daka and whatnot. And so there was kind of this, joke about a lot of the early stuff that was just very, it is what it is. And moving on to this one, I was saying kind of between the break between the two episodes we've been recording, I'm halfway through, like I said, the first one in the Siege of Terra, and the narrator, I don't know who it is, don't care. He's doing an amazing job. He's got kind of this deep British voice, and he's just, he sounds good, and I like that. And I've noticed in the turns of phrases that the author is putting in there, he's doing an amazing job of, kind of these painting the picture of what this universe is like, and without digging into so much detail that, and again, I'll go back to Tolkien and Tom Clancy, right? So back in the 80s when I was reading novels, and Tolkien was the first author I ever read that was like not a children's book or, with pictures in it kind of thing. So I read The Hobbit and then jumped into Lord of the Rings. And I love those.
He was 23 at the time.
Yeah, and Tolkien really, he like paints
Hop on
this,
Pop
he
was
like
a big
paint Hop on Pop was a big one. I had struggled to get through that, but again, Tolkien paints you this picture and you fill in the blanks with your imagination. Whereas Tom Clancy came up with the techno thriller, and he doesn't leave much to the imagination, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that really had him stand out as an author is the level of detail that he would put into all of these things, and those are kind of the two writing styles. Usually people fall somewhere between the two, and in here I think with the Horus Heresy ones, it's the best of both. We're getting enough detail of the world that you're like, oh, I can see how this works, and they're pulling in a lot of these like kind of grim dark details that are amazing, but there's still plenty of room for me to fill in the gaps of what that might look like. And so far I gotta say I'm really enjoying them from the tonal perspective. Like they're setting the tone of this massive galaxy-wide civil war, and it's really
one
well
of the biggest, and you got to give him credit, one of the biggest events you can think of to happen, right? I mean, the only thing that would have been bigger would have been probably, well, I don't know, maybe the fall of the Eldar, but definitely the war in heaven with the Catan and all that, right?
Nobody cares about those Xeno scum. It's all about the humans.
Except for the Emperor. He cares about them.
Yeah.
He cares about them, but only as much far as he can use them.
Rich, we're getting some of that feedback again.
Oh, okay.
From your mic. Yeah. So we'll see what you can do about that. And I did just listen to, before I started listening to the one, I was listening to 2 books about the Eldar. Or not the Eldar, but the Necrons. Yeah. So it was a 2-part series. I forget what I'm drawing a blank on the 2 names.
The
Twice Dead King, and then the one that came after that,
right?
Or before that, whichever. I just finished those up too before I started this, and that guy did an amazing job of like, what does the Necron society look like, and that kind of like I said, I thought that one did a really good job. And obviously they get these authors who have a love of that particular race or particular faction in the game and kind of run with it. And so I thought he did a good job on that one as well. That one was a little bit more of little meat and potatoes writing compared to, I think, some of the Horus Heresy stuff. I think they're definitely got their A game on the Horus Heresy stuff.
Yes. And you read Horus Rising and all of that.
Yeah, Flight of the Eisenstein and
right. And man, Kelly, I'm going to tell you, Horus Rising, the very first of the Horus Heresy series, I thought was done so well. I really, really thought that was done so well. My son, Sean, he loved it. He loved it. The characters and all of that. Absolutely loved the character of Garvio Loken. Great character. Loved his story arc and all of that. Really good stuff, right? Really good. Kelly, I would love to get your opinion on this stuff. I strongly suggest start with Horus Rising. Okay, it's in my library. You can get that one on audio there, and I think I would love to get your insight on that. It starts out really well. starts out really strong, and the writing throughout the whole thing I thought was great. And one of the things that I was actually impressed with, I remember thinking when they were talking about doing this, how do you write for a Primarch? How do you write for the Emperor? You know, how do you write for Malcador? Here's these characters that are so much larger than life, and the only people who've done writing jobs well enough for something like this would have been like Tolkien, you know, out of the Silmarillion, or I could see Martin writing for something like that. But so dangerous doing that sort of thing because you built up over the years. I remember when Horus Heresy first became a thing, right? Before then, it was just some distant emperor who's all busted up and old, sitting on a throne, and he's got some.
Game. It was a board game first.
Yeah, you sound.
Yeah, you got to put your mic back down.
How's that?
Yes, there you go. Yeah,
okay.
and
it was a board game.
And remember, the Adeptus Custodes had no shirts on, and they had the leather pants and the weird, you know, helmet thing and all that. And they've changed so much, but they built it up over time. They even had the little blurbs about chapter histories and White Dwarf, and here's who the Primarch was, and here's some of the story of it, and here's the legends and all that, and Gilliman being on having his throat cut by an orc, and you know, sitting there in stasis, slowly, possibly healing, and you know, all that stuff. And then
should have stayed dead.
And then when they, I was glad they brought him back. But then when they were talking about writing for it, I was like, man, how do you do that? That's dicey. You know, that's really dangerous doing that sort of thing, because if you screw it up, you can't really walk that back. You know, and I was super impressed with the writing on that. Did you feel the same way, Mark? Do you remember when you read that?
Yeah, and we'll go like what I keep thinking of is if you don't do it right and you do it wrong, you're stuck with those Daredevil movies.
Yeah,
we can't walk those back.
Yeah.
so I'm with
Elektra is great.
Yeah. Yeah, like I say, they've done a good job. Yeah, it is one of those things, but again, it's also kind of what we want. You know, we want them to fill in these blanks or tell this history. And you know, Black Library started out as this little side gig, you know, and it was some short stories and things like that. And now look at it; it's its own publishing company, and they're doing an amazing job with
publishing company.
Yeah, with their IP, they're doing a really good job. And like I say, some of the early stuff, it was the early stuff, but whatever, there wasn't anything else. It's like looking at some of the old GW figures, you know, from the Rogue Trader days. They were the coolest figures out. You look at them now, and you're just like, they was the early days. You know, that was as cool as it was back then. You know, I mean, there wasn't anything cooler.
That's right.
But nowadays,
riding around on the right guard stick.
Yeah, nowadays everything has, you know, all of it is elevated. I think, you know what I mean. The production values across the board.
So you felt the same way though when you first read that. I remember feeling like, wow, I was taken aback, and I felt like, all right, I feel much more comfortable going for this ride now. I don't have to be so apprehensive. I can just kind of relax into it. And that made it so much easier and so well done. I loved the variety of characters. Well, before I get all effusive about it, what have your thoughts been, Rich?
So I'm going to make a bold statement here. The Warhammer 40,000. I'm going to do it. It's going to happen.
Water it down. Stay between the lines. We want you
no,
to say,
no. I'm going to make a very. I'm going to make a very strong statement.
Safe and warm. That's where we live.
Here it comes. He's coming in hot. What's up?
Yes, I'm coming in hot. The Warhammer 40,000 is spicy. The Warhammer 40,000 universe is the greatest shared universe ever written. It is. I have followed it.
I thought you were going to say something controversial.
No, okay. Well, you know, some people might have controversy. Some people might argue DC and Marvel are the greatest shared universes ever written. I am more invested in the stuff they've done.
Your sound again.
I know, but I wanted to let him finish his sentence before.
I don't want to. I wanted to ruin his. I wanted to ruin his.
I'm more. I don't know what the issue is, but if I have to, I'll take off the headset. But I'm more invested in what they've done since 1987 with the release of Rogue Trader, where they took the Warhammer universe and stuck it into a science fiction theme than I have been in the almost 50 years that I followed Marvel and DC. They have not screwed it up. It's impressive.
Bless you.
The amount of
I got one.
yes, bless you. The amount of
Kelly's getting delivery. And Rich, your audio is awful right now, so please fix that.
I will try to fix that.
Yeah.
Stand by.
While he's fixing that, I want to say I agree. Like, I remember getting that Rogue Trader book and just reading through, and it was so chock full of world building, and it was these stupid little quotes that were in it, and it was all these little like sidebar kind of things. And like, I remember in that book reading about the Tyranids, and I thought that was one of the coolest things ever. Like, their entire technological base was organic and grown, and I'd never really like. That was my first time ever coming across that concept in like science fiction. And, I know it's existed elsewhere or whatever, but for me, I was like, oh, this is really cool. You know what I mean? And not everything has survived the test of time. I miss you, Zote Mercenaries. But man, it was cool. Rich, I don't hear you at all. No, I don't hear you at all, Rich. And then we kick Sean out, apparently. So, all right, Kelly, what do we really think about all of this? Kelly, what we need you to do is I need you to take a sabbatical. You need to take 6 months off so that you can catch up on these 712 Horus Heresy novels. Can you do that for me?
I will work on that. Is there a Cliff Note version?
Is there yeah, I think Rich was holding it up the other.
You already know how it ends.
How does it end? What?
See,
No,
that's,
but I mean,
that's
just that synopsis. I mean, because look, I remember the story as it was originally told, right? And it was like the kids' ride to stop Horus from killing the Emperor. Of you have to be this tall. Here's your ticket. Jump in front of Horus.
That's right. Everybody was throwing themselves in front of the bullets.
Just Sanguinius. Just Sanguinius. He's the only one important.
So that's where I'm like, if they streamline, if they condense it down, because you don't need that. I mean, I think that's one of the big failings in storytelling is nobody has to be like this grand sacrifice hero in order to have something be meaningful. You can make what's seen as smaller contributions over time that lead to greater outcomes.
Right, like walking straight across the square.
I'm telling you, Kelly.
Exactly.
She walks across the square, and Luke Skywalker defeats the Emperor.
All right, how's the audio?
Same.
Audio good?
Yeah, it sounds all right.
It's better, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, there we go.
I'm telling you, Kelly, the storytelling in it and the way that they've done it is really, really good. And the things that they've taken, like the whole thing about Magnus and what he did with his fall from grace and all of that.
I heard he did nothing wrong.
No, Magnus did a lot wrong. He was always bad. He just wouldn't admit it.
But this is the thing, is that it's the tragedy of it and the way that they write it. I was wondering how they were going to approach that, how they were going to take care of that whole issue, because everybody had that feeling like, well, Magnus got screwed, And
Angron got screwed. Angron got wronged.
Well, but
Magnus,
let's stick with Magnus first, okay? Because Angron, nobody knew about him at the time. No one knew.
Magnus was built to fail, but Angron got screwed.
But Magnus was Home Depot to fail. The story with Magnus could have been a big downfall, but I love the way that they've handled it. I love the way they've handled all that stuff to flesh out what, like you said, was kind of a makeshift story as they were coming up with it, because it was that whole, well, how do we get Marines to fight each other? What's the excuse kind of thing? Turning that into this and what it has become has been really impressive. Usually you don't see that sort of development happen in front of your eyes. Usually it's a regression from the original creation to what it's boiled down to as it becomes mainstream. This is the other way.
It was so easy to make them choose sides. It's whether you sided with the guy who made you or you sided with the guy who kept the ideal of the guy that made you said you were supposed to fight for. The fascinating thing about the Horus Heresy to me, guys like Magnus, the Primarchs especially, because the Primarchs are, Space Marines are transhuman, the Primarchs are superhuman. They were built by the Emperor to be a means to an end to keep the human race viable in the galaxy, because he as the greatest psychic in the history of the human race understood the threats that the human race was under, and the lengths that he went to and the sacrifices that he made of the guys that were his sons, which were the Primarchs. They were created from his gene matter. It ended up being such a the way that they sorted themselves out. There's so much drama in how they sorted themselves out, like Mortarion, Angron, what's his name from Fulgrim, Fulgrim, and the four main Chaos Primarchs, Mortarion, Angron, Fulgrim, and Magnus. The way they sorted themselves out under Abaddon in the Horus Heresy is just fascinating. The psychology of it, why they hate their father, why their father spurns them. It's amazing the way they've taken that sandbox and they've just taken a shared universe that's written by 40, 50 different authors and turned it into something that is just cohesive. And I give it up to Games Workshop. It's their control over their IP that did it. And having been a part of it myself, secrets revealed, having been a part of it myself, their iron grip on how they held their IP so close to their chest and then allowed people to kind of play in their sandbox, but they had to stick to what was going on at the core line. That is what makes this entire series so fascinating.
And again, there's no real, it's not a story that's filled with catharsis or any of that.
No,
it's all just
terrible.
It's 40K through and through.
Yeah.
And the tone of it, whoever the editors are, managing editors that they have for this, and the ones who are controlling the narrative for these different authors are doing a great job at kind of choreographing everyone, corralling all these different authors and bringing them through to have this common narrative given.
The grimdark theme. That is what rides throughout the entire
and again,
IP.
I'm going to contrast this with some of the other stuff we've seen, Star Wars. I'm positive everybody who's writing these novels is a fan, right?
Yeah.
And I don't picture that, Frank Smith, who got the job to write the latest Horus Heresy novel, is sitting down going, how can I work in the current hot political thing or current social movement of the whatever, and I want to ram this into this story and make it fit, nobody seems to be doing that. This is a grim, dark story. We all know what the story is. We all know how it ends. They're filling in the blanks of that story and kind of fleshing it out and giving us maybe some details we didn't have before.
How can I make an Eversor assassin seem like the good guy?
Right, exactly. Or like I said, I was reading that Necron one. It's how can I be sympathetic to Necrons, who are these ageless, evil, undead robots. And yet they did it. You know what I'm saying?
Souls of their entire race.
Yeah, they traded their souls in, and But again, they're doing such an amazing job because I feel that every author, and because it's not one author, it's dozens of them.
Yeah,
and they all have a passion for this sandbox, this universe, and they consider themselves. I'm speaking for them, but I know that I'm right. They think they're lucky that they get to play in that sandbox and deliver something. And
they're contributory. They're not exceptional. They're contributory to the whole, and that has a lot of power in an IP based universe.
Yeah. Because I can't tell you, I'm not seeing, some star's author's name. That's like, oh, it's the latest. This person wrote that. Dan Abnett. Dan Abnett's good. But he's probably the biggest name of all of the authors. Most of them, I couldn't care less who the author's name is. I'd have to look it up. You know what I mean? Like, I know Dan Abnett because I read all the Gaunt's Ghosts, but I mean, it's not like Stephen King is writing these and everybody's like, hey, if Stephen King's name is on something, they're going to go get it, whatever it is. That's not what this is. This is all these authors are interested in this universe and telling this story, and it's less about the author and more about the story, which I think is different than we've seen in some of the Star Wars.
Dan Abnett writes good 40K. Good 40K doesn't come from Dan Abnett exclusively. Dan Abnett writes well in the 40K universe.
Yeah.
But there's other authors that write just as well that are also contributing to the universe is what benefits, not Dan Abnett. And that's what makes it exceptional as an IP. That the sandbox, it's the Marvel and DC had the same thing back in the day. Now it's lost. They've crushed themselves. But when you had John Byrne and John Buscema and George Perez and all these famous artists and authors, and Terry Austin as an inker, and Chris Claremont as a writer, when you had all those guys contributing to a shared universe, that is what made the brand important. And 40K has never, Games Workshop in general, has never lost that idea that the universe is more important than the individual that's putting their efforts into it. You know, and it's something like when Thomas Pirinen did a great success to the Warhammer universe with his Mordheim ideas, but it's just a piece of the pastiche that is the entire Warhammer universe, from Warhammer 1 to Warhammer Age of Sigmar.
I like pastiche on sourdough.
You had Andy Chambers, you had Rick Priestley, you had Gab Thorpe, you had all these guys that did their part to push it forward. You had Nigel Stillman, you had all these great authors and great artists and great miniatures creators that have pushed the IP forward. But the thing that has maintained throughout the entire history from the late 80s to the now 2020s is the universe. The universe is the primary importance, and that is, I think, what makes them so successful.
Yeah, and if anything, the universe has gotten grimmer.
It's terrible.
And more
it's going to get even grimmer in the next year. It's going to be awful.
Yeah. I've got an idea. Let's crack it in half.
Yeah.
Let's crack it in quarters. I mean, let's and then let's do something that doesn't even make any sense. It's going to be horrible.
See, that's why I'm so eager to get Kelly's insight into it, is because Kelly has a very cynical outlook on a lot of that stuff as you go into it. And I think, and that's the thing, is that as you do so, I think you'll be gratified to hear and experience what there is there. But I'm eager to see your insight or hear your insights into it as you do. And Mark, who's kind of
it would be interesting to get back in, because it's been a while, right? It's been a while because we all worked there. We've all consumed this product very early on.
We have all worked there.
and I have to say, when I walked away from it, the universe that you're talking about, Rich, I had to sit here and tell myself, okay, that's Rich's comments are confined to what's being authored, what's being put out in these books, because what was being put out in the game, in the retail world, which is where I finally left, was very different from that. There was a great push to kidify that thing.
Yeah.
And that was a major departure from, because what Rogue Trader was interesting to me, because it was this dark universe. It was like, oh my God, here's like this thing. I haven't seen something like, and you wanted to get into it. And then working for the company, initially you were still into that world, but you began to realize, wait a minute, they're pushing a different thing. And it wasn't as inspiring as it was. So I'm glad to hear what you guys are talking about from the book aspect. And I've delved into a couple of books Sean has given me over the years. Whenever I return back east, Sean will usually hand me a half a dozen books and say, here, you have to read these. And I've delved into a couple of those. And I have to say, they are compelling stories. There are things, because you want to go explore that world of chaos. And when you talk about the Horus Heresy, for me specifically, I'm like, okay, I want to understand the psychology that allows this individual to get led so far astray to try to derail all of humanity.
Yeah, and the psychology of Horus is ridiculous. It is ridiculous.
Right.
It's like how you get to the point where Horus is assaulting Terra is, you look at it and it's like, how did he get to that place?
Yeah,
Whatever.
and
They had me a Daughter of Woe. I was like, that is one of the coolest names for a Space Hulk ever. I was like, that, and that name really speaks to the 40K universe.
You gotta throw that.
We're gonna name this giant Space Hulk Daughter of Woe, and I was like, I'm there. Whatever story has that in it, I'm there. I'm totally down with it.
But like I was saying, guys, before we started shooting, just when I think I'm out, they pull me back,
pull you back in.
Yeah. And so, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, because, I was never one for painting the models. I'll admit that there was a lot of laziness and
models.
And, I mean,
you gotta paint.
Yeah, no. So I know. I think you may have seen a couple, and they were awful. But getting into the story, because I still appreciate the universe, and so that's that aspect of it. That if like I like what you guys are saying, because it's the thing that I go and I start picking up a couple of these books and I listen to them. It'll be the thing that keeps me there.
Right. And Kelly, I want to say also that you're not wrong when you're talking about like Rogue Trader came out, cool. Second edition hit early 90s.
Yeah.
And whoever was running the show up at GW headquarters really had this, oh no, we don't want grimdark. We want bright blue Marines that look good on the box and help us sell toys. You know what I mean? So there was this very dumbing down kind of, I want everything to look pretty and candy like, and so there was kind of those growing pains or whatever that they did kind of take a detour from what they were doing. And
how different Kelly and I are and what we actually like doing.
From the same family. Same family, no doubt.
Not only that, by the way, this is what the original Golden Demons used to look like.
Yeah, it was
when they handed those out. Yeah. So it's interesting. Kelly and I.
Hey Sean, did you win that statue in your hand from the model that features my visage?
Yes, I did. As a matter, you're talking about that most infamous of all of the Adeptus Astartes.
Yes.
The Mark Marine.
The Mark Marine.
Have something similar.
Oh, well, now I'm feeling left out.
Did you just find that in a box in the back room or something?
No, I actually won that.
3D printer goes burr.
Atlanta in 2006 as the staff prize, sir.
Oh, you were in the staff competition?
Yes, for a Black Templar chaplain back in that day. That is what I won that for.
Nice. Oh, Sean's getting it out.
I'm very proud of that.
See now yours was, I don't want to downplay any victory, okay? Yours was one with a regular 40K model.
True.
Mine was one with this gentleman right there. And I don't know if you can see him very well.
I see it. It's an Inquisitor.
Who does that look like? Who does that look like? Inquisitor model.
It looks like that bald jerk right up there in the left corner.
That's right.
That's what I won. Last one.
That was a custom
Sean,
Inquisitor scale.
I'm not gonna compete with you. You are an excellent painter.
That was a custom Inquisitor scale Space Marine with my visage.
See, that's the thing I'm saying is that I won it with Mark's face.
So it was an uphill battle.
Yeah, that's a double hit right there. That is something.
I still think you would have gotten first place if it had like a regular Space Marine face on it.
Yeah, let's not go down that. Yeah, don't piss me off. Let's not go down that road. But yeah,
the most combat weathered Space Marine in the history of space.
I remember, one of the most gratifying moments in my life was when I was over at Mark's house and I had that model and Mark showed it to his dad and he was like, "Hey Dad, who does this look like?" And his dad was like, "That looks like you." And I remember I felt really, really good. I was like, "Man, that's awesome." His dad looks at it and gets that's Mark.
Yeah.
Because, I told so many of the sculptors and
I know
and
that
artists,
ugly anywhere.
well, I told so many of the sculptors and artists and stuff up at Games Day that year, I was like, anybody can sculpt the usual, face, the stereotypical model face, right? Anybody can do that. How many are actually doing a real human face, a real human? And that's what I really dug about it. And Mark was the one who got me into sculpting. So it was awesome to be able to pay homage to to Mark by getting him in as an Astartes into White Dwarf.
That's right. I have that White Dwarf around here somewhere. I save it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm in this White Dwarf as a Space Marine. So
But
Yep.
I will echo what Rich
How
said,
many
Sean.
people can say that? Mark?
envy me, because there's not many people. I'm not sure how many people at all could say.
Genetic modifications.
Not only that, a Death Watch Astartes.
Death
you know?
Watch Astartes.
Where do you
What's that,
say,
Kelly?
No, I'm just going to say that I'll echo what Rich said. Sean, your artistry is unlike anything I've ever seen. I mean, your attention to detail, and I remember that from the very beginning, watching you get into the game. You were never satisfied with just a model being the model on the table. There was that constant quest from your point of view of how can I make this model come alive? How can I make it do something? And I remember just the early days of you just attempting to put things together and cutting it apart and reassembling it.
Metal back then.
Yeah, exactly. Your ability to accomplish, or watching you spend hours just hand painting banners or just making sure the colors are just right. Your thumb is like 10 colors of green and that kind of thing. So I mean, your artistry and your ability to bring these things to life, it's I mean, it's long overdue that you should have way more of those types of awards.
And I say, I personally have considered it like this badge of honor that when I was working at GW, they'd let us paint figures for Games Day, right? Because they had all these tables or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, we need a bunch of figures painted," and they'd pay us a little extra money. And like my figures were good enough. They're like, "Okay," but they let me paint figures that Games Workshop used at Games Day. That was like a point of pride that my figures were good enough to do that. I've done a little bit of commission painting, right? And so people have paid me to paint figures for them. But I've always said that I am a house painter. Sean is an artist. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I can put a good looking
kind.
figure on the table and I'm happy to do it. And, and am I better than some people? Yes. Are there a lot of people better than me? Hell yeah. There's so many people on the internet. You watch all the YouTube videos. Like there were some amazing painters, and in no way am I trying to make it sound like, like I'm even approaching most of them.
Yeah.
But again, I'm a house painter. Sean has always been an artist in my eyes. When it comes to that.
Sean's in rare company. When we get into that, when we get into that world of how to paint, how to model, Sean is in rare company.
Yeah, I had to learn how to paint just good enough to defend myself. When you got like Sean in your painting group,
I gotta show something. I gotta show something.
You're very kind. You humble me with that. You're very kind. My proudest achievement, though, to this day, is still seeing Mark's face on a Death Watch Space Marine in White Dwarf. That was to me on so many levels. That was to me just awesome. That really was. So anyway, I wanted to get back to the Horus Heresy.
Yeah,
enough about how great I am.
Yes.
We'll do a whole episode on that. Okay.
Yeah.
A special episode on how great Sean is.
But man, Kelly, I really look forward to seeing or hearing your comments on it as you start that, that arc.
Mm-hmm.
I really am eager for that. Mark's like at the beginning part, kind of first quarter, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
And Rich is about halfway through, I suppose, right around there.
And like I told you earlier, like I've covered the Horus Heresy via these since the start. So this is more like the battlefield, the idea of how the battles were fought, what the tactics were used, what the machines
it's like
were.
One of those World War II history books that
describes very much
Alamein or something, right?
Style, right? Exactly. What these novels do is they bring the whole yes, exactly. Yes. So all the Illuminations books, all those old art books. The novels bring you the psychology and the inner workings of why the things happen. So you'd see, this Adeptus Mechanicus Legion fought against this Space Marine faction, and this was the result, and these were the troops that were involved, and here were the force counts and all that sort of thing. The Horus Heresy novels look at a character within one of the forces and say, well, why are we doing this? Why are we opposing the Emperor? Why are we supporting the Emperor? Why is what we're doing? Why are we someone who doesn't care about either side and is just stuck in the middle? and and has to deal with the idea that humanity is just a expendable resource that the universe grinds up and spits out to stop chaos from completely overwhelming the physical universe.
And you're not sure, and this is the thing, you're not sure that humanity should survive.
No,
you know?
no, humanity is just as rotten as everything else in the universe. The whole universe is a gray area of the unreliable narrator. One person says something is true, the next person says that it's false, and they give good evidence for why it's false. But that person who said that it was true, they stick to their narrative because that's what they thought was true. And you see such a pastiche, such a
there it is again, making me hungry.
Canvas. Yeah, such a canvas of all of the different viewpoints that make a story interesting. The story isn't just interesting because you're the hero, and the story isn't just interesting because you're the villain. The story is interesting because you get to look at all the different viewpoints and figure out, where do I stand? And like, who do I support? I don't even.
Well, I know for me personally, I'd have to go with the Emperor. I'd have to. I used to be a big fan of Chaos back in the Brian Ansel days
back when the first 2 Chaos books came out.
Yeah, I used to be a big fan of that, and I remember
Darkness and Lost in the Damned.
Yeah, and I remember thinking about that and thinking, well, but the problem is, if you go with Chaos, you're really just stuck with one particular aspect of life, and that's it. That's it. You either go through life all dirty and filthy.
There's nothing left of you.
The ocean is only. Well, I don't even think of it as an ocean. It's like having only one thing that you can do ever. You're either pissed off all the time, you're either really lascivious all the time, you're dirty all the time. It's one of these things.
I know. I want to be in the mood and experience all of them in turn.
Right, and
but
you can't do that.
If you rolled Chaos Lord as an attribute, though, it gave you some killer bonuses to.
That's true.
Yeah,
killer bonuses.
See, that's the messed up.
100 table. It was.
That's the messed up thing is that Brian Ansel. That's the messed up thing is Brian Ansel telling them, "I want Chaos to be the best army out there," because he liked it. He thought it was cool.
No, that was his army. Yeah, he dug it. Yeah.
And I was glad when that kind of went away. I was really glad when that went away and it became more about what Chaos was and the detriment of it and all of that. It wasn't just the path to power, and if you roll enough stuff, you're going to be strong enough.
But the idea is that Chaos is overwhelming. You saw that in the end of 8th edition. Chaos overwhelmed everything and created the Age of Sigmar in 9th edition. So it actually continued on. Like his whole idea never failed. Chaos eventually overwhelmed everything, but there was always the spark of law was always.
Well, have you read the Indomitus Crusade stuff?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so you read the one about the God Blight?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. I may not have read as much as you're talking about, but I'm familiar with it.
I won't ruin it for you with that, but I loved that too. I love the fact that they are exploring such a rich and diverse and expansive universe where you have stuff so many thousands and thousands of years, even further. If you go back with, the Catan and the War in Heaven and all that, and then where it ends and wherever it ends, there's so much time to explore there. And I love the fact that they are exploring that. And the questions, I don't want to ruin a lot of stuff in it because I really dig how that's going to. I really do. I know you're not a fan of Gilliman or whatever, but I dig that story. And it brings up questions where you wonder, well, how is this going to turn out? What is Gilliman's role in this?
I find Gilliman, he asserts himself as an ultimate right. And that is the problem that I have with him, is that Gilliman feels that his ideas are the correct ones, regardless of what evidence brings. And that is
now, that thought is, you need to read the other books in there, because that's his character was like that, especially in the Horus Heresy when they
I
had
know
the
he questions it afterwards. After he comes back, he questions.
Well, there's a lot of stuff
Where-
that happens in there specifically that have brought questions up for that, how that's all going to turn out, and you wonder about that. And I really like the way they've done it. That's all I'm going to say is, I really like the way they've done it. And they've taken this character who started out like what you were talking about, even with the Unremembered Empire and all the stuff he did with Sanguinius and the Lion and all of that, to now who he is with the Indomitus Crusade. And I don't want to get into it too much. I really am looking forward to you guys' thoughts as you go through this and where it ends up.
I wonder if the Primaris are going to end up not what they expected.
I kind of hope they are what they expected. I really don't want them to mess with it at all. I really
They're
don't.
like children. Like I look at the Primaris, and the Primaris remind me of kids that are looking up to their older brothers. That's what they,
Well,
and their older brothers aren't as strong. But
but you have some veteran Marines who are becoming Primaris.
Right.
You know what I mean? In fact, in the book I was just reading, the first of the Horus Heresy, Siege of Terra, there was a fight going on where it was two Space Marines fighting, and the one Space Marine was recently made a Space Marine, and he ended up fighting against one of these traitor Marines who just had more experience and was, and they did a really good job of showing, you're both Space Marines, you're both super, strong and powerful, this and the other, but experience counts also. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But also, like you said, Mark, there are, and I love, again, the phrasing they use, crossing the Rubicon.
Mm-hmm.
There are a number of Marines who have crossed the Rubicon and done that, and others who haven't. Like, Dante didn't, and so, but Mephiston did. And so there's a lot of things that I'm looking forward to with that. And just so much. I don't want to ruin things for you, especially with that, because you don't know how that's going to end.
Yeah.
I wonder if the Rubicon Primaris is a trap. That is the part that I wonder about, because of is it Balthazar Gelt? Is that his name?
Well, let me stop you right there. It can't
about...
be because of the sheer number of models they've sold for the Primaris side. So now you're just being dumb.
No, the models.
Again, I hope it's not. And from what I've
seen,
the
models follow the universe, which is the genius.
It's cute that you think that.
It's
really adorable that you think
the models follow the universe. There will be something beyond Primaris Marines that are better than Primaris. I'm telling you right now.
There is.
It's going to have
Super Primaris.
Well, the Adeptus Custodes are better.
There already is. Yeah. And I like the fact that they've kept that bar rather than, having them approach that. I like the fact that they've established, Custodes are still Custodes. They're still top of the line. Everybody else, and the guy you're talking about is Belisarius Call.
Belisarius Call, thank you.
And I like the fact that they've, they're sitting there wondering, well, I wonder how we would do against the Primaris. And then after they fight him, he's like, well, all right, there's our answer.
But I'm also wondering where Fabius Bile. So I'm wondering where Fabius Bile fits into all of it with Belisarius Call. And I wonder, it's like that is the richness in the universe. I wonder about the Dark Mechanicum. I wonder about Belisarius Call. I wonder about Fabius Bile and all the stuff that he's doing with Chaos Marines to make Primaris Chaos Marines.
Yeah, all of they're wondering is dangerously close to heresy. I would.
Oh, and Mark,
heresy.
Mark,
another would be stomping on my nuts at this point. But,
another series that you guys might like is Black Legion, I think it was, by was that Aaron Dembski Bowden?
Aaron Dembski Bowden, yeah.
I think he did it. It actually fills in the part about after the heresy, like how the Black Legion comes about and all of that, and what happens in the warp, and how they're brought together essentially as a force and just doesn't disintegrate into nothingness out there, which I thought was very well done actually too. There's just so much in there they've done that's so good.
I mean, even with the Thousand Sons. So the Thousand Sons and the conflict between Magnus and his first captain. it's fascinating because Magnus basically rejected what's his name? Sean, help me out. The first captain of the Thousand Sons.
Tom Bombadil.
It was awesome.
You talking about Araman?
He's eternal.
Araman. Yes, Araman.
Bombadil.
Who created the Right of God.
Tom
Araman
Bombadil was
created the
actually
Right of
one of the 2 lost Primarchs. One of the
Yes.
ones who was so stupid
So
that
stupid.
even the traitor Marines don't talk about him. Now you know why.
Yeah, they
don't
all
bring
got
him
together
up.
and they
Yes.
voted him right out.
Yes.
We're voting you off the
Bombadil
island,
was
Tom
flame
Bombadil.
The Emperor's found another one. Let's go meet him. Oh, Tom Bombadillo. No.
Don't know how good his yellow boots are. And Goldberry, so sweet. So anyway, but the conflict between Araman and Magnus is fascinating because Araman wants to preserve the Thousand Sons as a legion, and Magnus wants to give them over to the powers of Tzeentch. And Magnus is lost, and he was lost from the beginning, but he wouldn't admit it. And that's when you read the burning of Prospero, you see that Magnus lied to himself constantly that he was lost. He thought he was smarter than the powers of chaos, and he wasn't. He wasn't.
But he wasn't. That the tragedy is he wasn't completely lost. Like Malkador said, he never would have fallen. He never would have fallen
had he not broken the webway when the Emperor was trying to put it together.
Which makes him tragic because
Yes.
you're right. He had that splinter of chaos in him, right?
Yeah.
And the Emperor was like, all right, well, I can manage that. We'll work with this. And then, of course,
broken. He made him broken. That's the problem. He made him so he was connected to the warp inherently, and Magnus had no choice but to be what he was made as, and the Emperor knew it. And that is why you look back on the Emperor as like, this is a terrible father. This guy's rotten to the core.
Well, I don't know if he's I don't know if he's terrible or if chaos was just chaotic enough to be able to throw wrenches in it to screw it all up.
I think as the most powerful psyker in the galaxy, I think he probably understood what he was doing when he created the Primarchs.
Maybe, but don't forget, most powerful psyker in this universe. You're talking about 4 entities from the other universe who are way different, especially Tzeentch.
Yeah. He might have been powerful, but he wasn't
the
smartest. That is the truth. Yeah, he wasn't the most wise. And that is.
But he was willing. What he was willing to do was take a chance, a gamble, and try it. And if he didn't, what would have happened? Well, they'd have been consumed like every other race would have been too.
40,000 years before the storyline. Yeah, they would have been.
So I'm actually very pleased. Well, I am pro Emperor. I am. If I were in that universe, that's the side I would have chosen. Is the Emperor's side, because like I say, chaos lost its luster.
I would have chosen it too, but as one of the world eaters that didn't get corrupted, I would have. I would have been a warhound to the end, and I would have died just like that dreadnought in Betrayer. It would have been awesome.
And in the end, isn't that the best that we can hope for? Is a good death.
See, I would have, if I were going to choose chaos at this point, I would have chosen Slanesh and died by Snoo Snoo.
So much Snoo Snoo, but it was all male Snoo Snoo.
It don't matter.
That's right. Death. When it's chaos spawn, it's all the same.
It was all the same. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Hermaphrodites are everywhere.
Mark, who would you have chosen? Who would you have fought for?
Oh, I like I say, for me, it's going to have to be the Imperium. Always has been. Like I say, for as long as I've been playing the game, I picked up my first Chaos Army. Hey, he asked me a question. Won't you be quiet?
I want you to. I'm paring your question down. What chapter?
What chapter? Mark Marine, of course.
Oh.
See, big mistake, man. Custodes are nothing. Custodes or.
Well, I mean, hey, does it have to be? Because I'd rather be an Inquisitor than any of that stuff.
See, the Space Marines actually have skin in the game. The Custodes were made to be nothing but tools. The Space Marines were meant to be used by the Emperor, but
No.
with a connection to humanity.
No.
don't-
Your view on the Custodes is limited, my friend. Allow me to expand your knowledge.
Continue.
Okay. Each of them was made to be, much like the Primarchs, was made to be individual and gifted with something different. That's why each of the weapons they're given is given by the Emperor and has a different attribute. Like the
But what is their connection to humanity? That is the question.
the
Because
connection
the
to what?
Space Marines are drawn
Humanity.
from humanity.
Oh, they are the most human of all of them. Have you read? Well, you didn't read Emperor's Legion, did you?
No, but they're
Okay, so
they're
in there,
created from the
no.
Emperor's own kingdom.
Stop. You're just grinding metal. Easy.
He's down, Ridley. He's down.
Get your Warhound self back a little bit, okay?
No, I can't.
In Emperor's Legion and a lot of the Indomitus Crusade, they go through this or go into it quite a bit. They are the most restrained of all. They are the most thoughtful of all. They are the ones who actually sit there and realize we are the image of the Emperor as we're out here. And they show such mercy and such control and all these. They are amazing that way. I love how they write for them. I really do. I love how they've written for the
Did you read
Custodes.
the Burning of Prospero? Because they don't have any mercy for the citizens of Prospero.
Well, I know
Who are
they
just
were sent
plain old
there.
humans.
Well,
They're just they don't have any choice in what happens when Magnus decides to go rogue. The citizens of Prospero, they're just hanging out. They don't have anything to do.
Well, that was because Horus sent them there as the mouth of the Emperor, sent them there to do so. That's why. And let's be honest, if a Custodes,
Horus is an amazing corrupting force. The way he manipulated all the pieces on the board.
Well, he did, yeah.
But they could definitely have not committed Exterminatis on the whole planet.
No, because Russ was about as close to Angron as you could get on the loyal side.
Angron beat the crap out of Russ, and Russ said, well, all my legions would have destroyed you. But yeah, I still smoked you on the battlefield. But Angron...
get back to my point.
Go ahead.
To my point.
Go ahead.
Control yourself, world leader. All right. The Custodes, when they are sent to do something, they do it, right? If the Emperor says, or they believe the Emperor has said, do this,
yes,
that's it. The Thunder Warriors, when the Emperor said, now, who'd he send to get rid of the Thunder Warriors? The Custodes.
Yes.
Right.
And they got smoked out of existence.
And the Custodes with Valdor actually feeling remorse, feeling concern about that. I forget which book it was where he was giving an interview about that. Was so well done.
Valdor,
it doesn't mean that they are automatons. They are not. They are meant to be individuals. And when you read not Emperor's Legion, Master of Mankind, did you read that one?
I've read some of it. I understand what you're saying though about them. I understand what you're saying about the each of the Custodes is unique, unlike the Space Marines, which generally tend to be
right. They are mass produced
of their Primarch.
Yeah.
Each of the Custodes is a unique individual creation, and that's what makes them so terrible in battle. Is that they work as a unit, but they're individually. They draw on their own strengths, and that's what's brought across in. Like 10 Custodes compared to 100 Space Marines, they're going to win,
right?
Because they go 10 for 1 against Space Marines.
As a matter of fact, in the Emperor's Legion, there's a bit at the end where a Custodes realizes why they were made. Yeah. He says, this is why I was made, right?
They were meant to control the legions. That's all.
I thought it was so beautifully done, and the reason they were made the way they were was so that they had their individual humanity still there to be able to understand their role even better. That's why I say Custodes are not automatons, man. They are an amazing creation.
All right, Sean, you've convinced me. I want to be a Custodes now.
Thank you.
I love the thought of being a custodian. I can take out the trash in the Imperial Palace. I can sweep up the floors. I'll mop. I can do all that stuff.
In armor.
in armor, and I look pretty good in gold. I have to admit.
with a gun spear.
You had me at gun spear.
Gun spear, yes. But you know, the Custodes they're a fascinating wrinkle. And getting back to our original point, they're a fascinating wrinkle in the entire shared universe of the 40K. I think it's the greatest. I think it's the greatest shared universe in the history of literature. It's a big statement. It's like, well, what shared universe is bigger? You know, people say Marvel Comics, DC Comics. Okay, yeah, there's thousands of individuals but those individuals now have been corrupted, whereas the Games Workshop universe, since it's so young, is still pushed into itself. It's still...
No, I'll tell you why it stayed the same. Well, first of all, I'll tell you the issue with any of the comic book stuff. Here's the thing about that: power creep. So you have power creep in there where everybody. Have you ever watched the channel about this character versus this character who would win, right? And they go through talking about the stats for them, what they can lift and what they can do. Every single character in there at some point has been cosmic and god level and can fly faster than 2 trillion times the speed of light, can punch a black hole into reality and all this stuff. It gets out of control because you have so many different authors going in there who want to make their mark, and they like this character, don't like this one, and they want to do this. And here,
that's the point, though.
It's too
they
crazy.
They want to make their mark. They don't want to contribute to the story.
Right. And 40K, in 40K, they keep that at this level. Here's the standard. Here's what it is. Here's what's happening. So even with the Primaris, you know, they were sitting there saying, well, one of the first questions that's going to come up, well, are these supposed to rival the Custodes? No, Custodes are still top of the line. You know, this is a step up for them, but it's not like they're Custodes now. They can lift like 100 more pounds, you know, that kind of thing. So they're keeping these things and the tone on this even playing field rather than getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger to where they're finally snapping half of life out of existence, you know? And that's why this particular universe is so good. That's why this one's better and more nuanced, better than Marvel and DC, because they got out of control.
Which is saying something, because it hasn't been recognized yet. Most people, if you say, do you know anything about the Horus Heresy? They'll say, what the hell are you talking about? You tell someone, do you know anything about Superman? They'll say, yeah, I know what Superman is. You know, but if you ask someone, you know, who's Horus? Who's the Emperor? Who's Angron? You know, there'll be some people that might, you know, 10% of the population might say, I heard of that. You know, I heard of it in a meme about Donald Trump. But, you know, I didn't know anything about it. Like, the level of detail that we're getting to are aficionados, right?
But most of, you know, Superman and the other, like, there've been television shows, there've been movies, there's been a lot more pop culture exposure for all of those than there has been for Warhammer. Warhammer, again, started in the 80s, built in the 90s, 2000 kind of getting mature. Now we're in, you know, 2020s. And it is now approaching kind of that mainstream popularity, right? That it's kicking up waves in the video game side. Dark Tide just released the beta. You know, that's getting a lot of good thing. I think a lot more people have experience with the 40K universe via video games than playing the tabletop game. But again, the novels are out. Like I say, in the 80s and 90s, that was a much harder. It was a more niche thing. I think that's becoming less so. A niche pastiche. A lot of people are referring, like, they understand the grimdark. They understand this, even if they're not like, I've read all the books and I play the games or whatever. Like, it's becoming more known and approachable as a property. And again, we've already had this conversation. I think that Games Workshop is biding their time, and they want to jump into some of these other mediums, you know, movies and television.
Long game for sure.
Yeah, they're playing the long game, right? They're doing some animation stuff on Warhammer Plus. But again, you don't want to end up stuck with that Daredevil movie, and I think that's where they're coming from. Is like, okay, if we do it wrong, we're stuck with whatever that wrong. And again, they've had some content. Remember that was how we all went over to your house and we watched that one animated movie. We're all excited to sit down and watch this movie. and it was some animated thing with some Space Marines, you know, and it was
it was.
it was pretty awful. You know what I mean? You're like, okay.
Yeah.
Kelly, what do you think? What's your thoughts on that?
Which part? You guys have been like arguing for the last 20
I know.
minutes.
Yeah, Kelly.
On who-
Well,
you know.
first
we're
things
deep in
first.
the
Kelly,
nerddom right
Kelly,
now.
would you be Empire or Chaos?
Eldar.
Eldar, you son of a bitch.
He's always
Nope.
been an Eldar.
Right here,
Not
player.
an option.
I'll allow it. I'll allow
Kelly
it.
has not always been an Eldar.
He has been.
No, he
I
has
remember
not.
defeating his Necro or his Harlequins handily back
No,
in
that was
Trader.
Paul.
Kelly's a tyranid.
Nope. I had a
He's
Cyclone
tyranid.
missile
He doesn't
launcher
need everything.
on one of my Terminators. I dropped a paper plate size template on him, and like one guy came wandering out of the crater. Oh, what happened?
You gave him an apocalypse template.
Yep.
No, they are my favorite army, but I don't know. I mean, if I was stuck with the Empire, because I would totally be Empire, because I agree with you. Chaos is sort of a, it's a one-trick pony. It does its own thing.
All right.
But, yeah.
You agree you'd have been a Custodes then?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's what I was saying. If we were going to do a 3-5-1 honorific, right? It should be like, 351st squad of the, 10,000 Legion, that kind of thing. That would be what we should do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm down.
What
Let's
I
do
would
it.
do.
Yeah. Once you get right on that.
Yeah, paint another set. Yeah.
Yeah. Once you get those painted up by the next episode.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm Black Templars or nothing because I'm all about the Crusades. So
No, at this point, it's got to be Custodes or nothing.
no,
I'm not doing
look,
Templars.
they're transhuman a bit they're a step too far for me. Even the Black Templars who hate everything still have a closer connection to humanity than the Custodes.
I will.
Why is having a closer connection to humanity considered a good thing?
Because humanity.
Yeah, you're asking the wrong question, dude.
When you are a slayer of everything that you see, you need to have a grounding point which connects you back to why you're fighting.
Right,
well,
but I've met
Custodes
humanity.
have. That's what the
Yeah, I've met
Custodes
them
have.
too, and the fact is, I think they're worthy. In all of their, we're getting really far off into philosophy here. In all of their error, I think humanity is worthy of defending just because of its variety.
But you wouldn't say that if you were stuck in traffic with them like I was the other day.
No, I was stuck in traffic 2 hours today, but I come back from Dave's workshop. Shut up.
No, see, Rich, I would agree with your point. Okay, is that there's something that's still worthy there, worth having. But there's that fine line, right, between hero and enemy, defender and victimizer, is that thing of like you're going to play both roles. The Emperor plays both roles. He dances on that line continuously.
Oh no,
right?
He plays one role because he
does a Mary Jane
innocence a day,
right? But it's that thing about you become so focused, so tunnel visioned on this thing that you're trying to do, that the rest of it becomes expendable. You begin to make justifications.
And that's what makes it fascinating is that you get to see it. It's a constant camera pulling back from different scenes. So you see the scene of the Imperial Guardsmen on the ground fighting a Tyrannid in a trench.
I don't see that because I don't care about them, which is why it would be a great Custodes.
And then you pull back, but that's what makes it fascinating. You pull back, and then you see the battle tank on the battlefield and all the soldiers around it. And then you pull back again, and you see the Titan fighting with the battle tanks around his feet. And then you pull back again, and you see the Exterminatis starship over the planet.
This sounds like Michael Scott trying to make a commercial in the office, right? There's a child in the sandbox, and you pull back, and it's inside the world's largest
I'm fascinated
prison.
by the 40K's universe to pull the camera at different levels of the conflict. The conflict is constant, but the camera can focus at all different levels of, you can go from the single individual to an army to a planet to a galaxy, and it's all connected. It's fascinating.
And you only see that with the intellect and insight of a Custodes, because it's been gifted.
Yeah, mere
their
space
brain
marines
was
cannot
manufactured
appreciate the
Right.
zoom lens.
They
It
can't.
is
Black
the-
Templars are always on a crusade because they're pissed off because they've been affronted for something.
Yeah.
You know.
What?
No, they
What do
just
you mean my
Black
coupons
Templars
expired?
understand that they have that the
CVS is going to pay.
that cleaving to an ideal is more important than sacrificing your truth. That is what they believe in.
Grand Marshal, we already have 10,000. Gather them in.
That's right, and throw them to this planet with an orc on.
We
it.
march on
It's important.
CVS at dawn.
March on
Because that
CVS.
will affront me.
The Black Templars. I do like the Black Templars. I do, but they are not the custodians. They are not.
Well, what is? I mean,
Right.
like I said,
That's my point.
Yes,
if you
now
read
you're
The Burning
getting
of
it.
Prospero, if you read The Burning of Prospero, the only reason
Nobody read that. Come on.
If I did, what are you talking
if
about?
the only reason that the Thousand Sons didn't win was because of the Custodes, because
Right.
it was so overwhelming. The
Right.
Space Wolves were an inconvenience. The Custodes were a problem.
No, the Custodes were smart. Custodes.
No, they were brutal, and they brought the Sisters of Silence with them, which neutralized the entire Thousand
Yes,
Sons.
because they are smart.
Yeah, they are smart. I'll give them that much.
Thank you. You realize nothing you've said has countered my point at all. You've simply bolstered my case as
Yes,
to
but
why
Angron was still right.
Angron was right. Angron didn't know what the hell he is. Angron was a mess. Angron was a mess.
Angron was the king of Born to Lose. That's
He
what
was. That's the thing. Yes, he was. He
He was
absolutely
born to
was.
lose.
Yes, he was. So, all right. Oh, and by the way, that would mean, Mark, by the way, that the emperor's true name would be Roland Toad.
Okay, how did we arrive at that?
Put that in your pocket, buddy, and keep it. It's truth.
Because of who we were talking about as the chapter master for the chapter we were talking about.
You've
Who would
just
have-
given the
Oh,
emperor.
yes. All right. Now I get it. All right. It took me a
Yeah.
moment. I was like,
It's
huh?
a very inside thing. But
Yeah,
you get
yeah,
it now. Yeah.
Yes. Now I understand. I
Now you
had to
know
put the
his true
pieces
name.
together.
Yeah. Now you know his
Put
true
that
name.
in your pocket and take it to Himalaya.
There you go.
Okay. I'm going to do that.
So, all right, guys. Well, thank you very
Excellent.
much. And next time, Kelly. So, Kelly, we'll talk to you about what movies and stuff maybe you should see. First on the list should be Twilight.
Yes.
And,
All three of them. Breaking Dawn is
All
my
six?
favorite.
yes. Yep. And then The Notebook after that. And
Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
Letters
and if
from
you
a Traveler. That's a good one.
if you want something nostalgic, maybe Sleepless in Seattle.
Oh, my favorite. I love that one.
Yeah.
Timeless.
So but
Yes.
we'll talk about that more
Yes.
as in the break there. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, the Custodians are the best, and you can't be those because we've already called it. And we'll see you in the next episode.
All right. Bye.
This concludes our Speak Nerd and Enter broadcast.